Jeff Barber, and he is the owner of Laughing Tortoise Media, one of the older transmedia companies here in Seattle. And also is a. Did we already do your forum on Facebook?
Yesterday, yeah.
Yesterday. This is how well I'm in the loop. So we're going to talk about transmedia, what it was, what it is right now, and the future of transmedia. Gentlemen, discuss.
Oh yeah, we are without a moderator.
Yeah!
So it's left to the loudest guy in the room to take it over.
I wonder who that is.
I do not need this. You want this?
Do you need this for recording, or should we just use our voices?
Go ahead and use the mic just for the camera.
Go to that.
Yeah. No, it's just to actually project it. But I know you don't need it.
I very rarely.
No, you don't.
So let's talk about transmedia, dudes. That's what we're doing. This is ridiculous. Oh man, you gave me a microphone. Okay, so transmedia is not new. Transmedia is not novel either. What? No, I was just now that side has one and we have one, and it's cool. Whoa. Transmedia is not new or novel. It's what humans do. We've given it a name, which is really weird, and then we like tried to co-opt it into some cool like new age thing, but it's really just like, hey, you see that movie? Yeah, I saw that movie. Want to draw a comic about it? Yeah, let's do it. Or like, let's tell a story. Oh, wait, we have this ability to make feature films now. That's really cool. Well, what's the first film we'll make? I don't know, a book? Like, it's transmedia is storytelling. Human beings are storytellers. This is what we do by default. The first cave painting ever was some guy making up some shit he did about hunting. It's super simple. That was our first connection to storytelling, or at least our first connection to our first stories. That was transmedia, because you know he told people that too, right? So he also drew it so people can see it. What we can do though, and what Stiff is up to, and what kind of we're all I think up to, is catalyzing a new wave of opportunistic transmedia. Because books exist, movies exist, music exists, comic books, all these other things exist. That's no big deal. But they haven't really sewn together in the way that we like to. 10 years ago, as a comic book movie, you throw up in your mouth a little bit. Anybody who says video game movie, everybody thinks of Uwe Boll and like the most terrible movies ever made. That's not how it has to be. We've created these vertical silos. What movies are, what films are, what games are, what music is, and we've locked into those. We've created entire industries around them, and then we compete them, right? We talk about how much the motion picture industry is making versus the video game industry. When really those are two little legs on a multi-legged centipede of storytelling. So what we need to do, okay, so we went through the 30s and the 50s, and we had the studio thing. That was a big thing, and then we established what filmmaking was. And then in the late 60s, the 50s was a result of the 30s. We don't need to get, in the late 60s, early 70s, we came up with a new thing. We could actually take the camera out of the studio, run around with it, do a cool thing. I'm getting that.
So this right here is a tangent meter, and if you look, there is a red portion of the meter over there.
That's actually a tension meter. Check it out. So there was a new way, and
it's a tangent meter.
Yeah.
It measures tangential information.
Trends on it. It's pretty cool. So what ends up happening is we have a completely like knocking off the rails. This is a weird thing. Check it out. In the late 60s, early 70s, we decided to make films differently, right? We decided that we could leave the studio and make films completely, put the camera on trucks, all this cool stuff. And then we called that a revolution. And then those revolution people, all the way through the 70s, you have your Lucases and you have your Spielbergs, they created a revolution. And then they got rich, and now there's nothing else. It's stagnant. Movies are movies. We can see the same superhero movie a million times. We can see the same.
Yeah, you started it.
That was actually my point.
Well, I think what's amazing about the point is that is there anything new under the sun here with this new buzz of transmedia? We've got some developers here. I'd like to hear about your work. What are you doing that's actually pushing that parameter? But I love where he was going with tangent, because in many ways, tangent doesn't necessarily coincide. I have a story, do I put something out on another format? Is it a tangent, or is it a coordinated complement that allows you to go deeper or further, and who gets to attenuate those choices? So I like, what do you mean by tangent?
Well, we'll hear from him tonight about agency, but to say everything he said in a nutshell, basically transmedia to me is a narrative unfolded over multiple platforms. It doesn't have to be multiple platforms like your computer, a book, or whatever, but it's the same story negative or narrative. And using George Lucas's model as an example, George Lucas created the expanded universe, the extended universe for some. But everybody know what the EU is with regard to Star Wars? Okay. Well, the first fan fiction started back in the 70s with novels that were written about this world that George Lucas created. George Lucas created this kind of opera, this Greek opera, space opera about these people, and he totally ripped off a bunch of Greek writers from back in the day. But in doing so, he had to create this really immersive world, and that world lent itself to telling other stories within it. So they started writing books about it. They, of course, merchandise was a big deal. I have a pair of the Underoos still. I have C-3PO Underoos. I couldn't find the Luke Skywalker Underoos because they all sold out. But the narrative continued, and to this very day, you would pull out your cell phone and look up on YouTube Star Wars fan film, and there will be fan films from every single expanded story from that. So transmedia to me, in this sense, is telling stories with one through line, and like he said, tangential. We like to picture, instead of a linear story with Phoenix Run, a kind of a vine, if you will. So there's a stalk that goes through that tells the story of our protagonist that happens in the web series. But then in the video game, we have a vine that comes off that allows you to have agency, like Don likes to talk about, within this world of Phoenix Run. And you can learn how the mechanics work and then have to work within that system. We also have a comic book that tells different stories. The comic book is all available alongside the video game and the web series on our platform. So what we're doing outside of our platform, our mobile application, is we're distributing comic books specifically through Diamond Distribution. So they sell our comic books and it drives traffic back to our model. So back to what Don was saying tangentially is this narrative happens in so many different ways that it'll never change what people are doing. You know, George Lucas started a long time ago, but what's different now is the way that technology is involved with it, and the amount of control that your readers, your audience, have over the stories within your universe.
So, sorry, I don't know if there's going to be a time to open up questions.
Now's the time.
Now it's a discussion, man. Please.
So, like what you're talking about having a vine, I love that. But I know that before I heard the word transmedia, which was 4 or 5 days ago, like I would think of, especially like the Star Wars universe, as an opportunity for merchandising, for money making.
Right.
Like, they make those video games because it's going to open up more business opportunities for them. How would you describe transmedia outside of that?
Marketing and public relations.
Yeah.
Well, that's where it started from. That is a buzzword. Transmedia is absolutely a buzzword for storytelling over multiple platforms, which everybody's already known about and been doing. So it lends itself to marketing because it helps, like you said, canalize everything into one umbrella. But the difference is now, as independent artists, is we have to be responsible for distributing our work. We have to be responsible for building an audience, engaging people, and getting them interested in what we're doing. We have to do it on a much smaller scale than it's been done in the past. There's no more big studio money. Cavalry is not going to come and bail you out of your artistic. So I think transmedia is just puts a little structure and builds some walls around what we're already doing, and it maybe even helps in development when you're developing something. So Don being a video game developer, a filmmaker, and an artist, a director, et cetera, he can bring all those things together and market them on a smaller scale and as an independent filmmaker. So for example, if you're a filmmaker, you just make films, you spend $1,200 on a 5-day shoot and post-production, you can do the same thing on that same scale with a comic book, or with a video game, or a novel, or with an ad lib, or whatever it is. Jeff, I know you want to say something.
Yeah.
Well, so all this brings up a really key point about transmedia, which is it is participatory storytelling. So a true transmedia platform will give the audience opportunities to either participate in the story
question, because if you start thinking about, okay, what are the revenue streams that we can create out of multiple paths to tell a story? I think that you're right, it's participatory media, but people have already participated. With Star Wars, people were participating in creating their own worlds, regardless of whether Lucas approved of it or not. In most cases, not. Unless he liked you, then he would hire you to do something else and co-opt you into his worldview, right? But what I think we're looking for now and in the future is this intentional sense of transmedia. How do I create a narrative that still has a tentpole, that still has an arc? As a story creator, I still want that arc to flow a certain way. But there are different ways that people can enter in and participate via the web, via social media, via a comic book, via a book, via a zine, via a DIY, whatever that modality is. And I need to be open to encourage that and to nurture that, because ultimately I'm trying to protect my arc, or the arc of the story that it takes in multiple ways. So in a sense, by allowing and creating more opportunities to participate, it's what I call the particularity of the arc stays true, but yet you allow these integrative moments. Now, as a storyteller and a developer, there are different ways and different methods to tell a story that's going to wind up on a big screen, a television screen, a small screen, an iPad, or a book. There's different methods. So what you don't want to take a method that goes on the big screen and just post it to allow people to watch it on your mobile. It's not going to work. You need to design with the medium in mind. So it's what I call axiomatic cinematography. And I use the word cinematography. I use the word cinematography at its root-based. Cinematography. Writing with the camera. It's not just the cinematographer, but it's writing with the camera in mind. And axiom means you're particular to that medium. So when I design for a theater release, it's a different design than if I'm designing for the web or for when I'm designing a mobile. It doesn't mean there can't be integrated, but I have to know who, or I have to know for what platform I'm designing for. And most importantly, to your participatory, I gotta know who I want to be in relationship with and what I want them to do.
So real quick, here's a definition. Axiomatic design is a systems design methodology using matrix methods to systematically analyze the transformation of customer needs into functional environment.
Oh my God, that is my new
Brilliant.
It's riveting.
I would say mic drop. These things are kind of plasticky, and I don't want to ruin the show.
Yeah, I don't want to do a drop the mic moment.
Don't you have to sort of give away some of the narrative in order to have participatory, media?
No, you have to give away the context. But the narrative, which I would call the arc that I create for my story, I don't have to give that away. But what I can invite people to do is to participate in the context and the form they want to play with that narrative. So yes, I'm giving something away, but I'm not giving away my arc, right? I'm not giving away my action idea. I'm not giving away what I call the heartbeat of the story.
If everyone tells you they want the lead character to die, and,
Well,
and it's consensus, like they need to die right there. Aren't you giving away the arc?
no, because again, I'm not going to play Roman Empire and wait for the thumbs up of the Vox Populi. They get to have choices, but there's certain things. What I'm arguing for, there are certain things as a creator and a creative that I still want to put into place that stays true to the story that's developed. But I want the audience to participate, but they're not going to take away the arc. It's a nuance to your question.
I think I might be able to
Yeah,
give an example of a control measure that we use to limit the outcomes. So like in the ad-lib, for example, they only give you an opportunity to put in a noun or a verb. So that's a control measure. So instead of putting any word in there, you have to put a noun in there, and that gets within the context of that sentence. So we have in development a HTML5 snowball technique for our comic books. And what will happen within the comic book is you will scroll down, right, or left to a different part of the story. As you hover over something, a number of different things can happen. So autoplay cutscenes, for example, is one. If you go down and see an autoplay cutscene, then it'll take away the opportunity to go left to see what the cutscenes are there. So you're not really saying, hey, do you want our lead character to die? You're saying, you choose your own adventure by how you interact with the content on the screen. So that's, control measures, I think, help you control your narrative. So you write the narrative, and then you give them the opportunity to grow a vine whichever way they can within that context. And of course, we're small. Our development team is 3 Indian guys who just got rocked by the biggest earthquake in their history, So those 3 guys right now are kind of maxed out, but eventually, as it grows, we'll scale up for it. If that makes sense.
I want to keep on this point a minute because it's a legit question.
Well, but
what
I'm getting is you give people the perception that they're actually controlling the narrative, but they're actually not. They're actually controlling the narrative.
No, I'm not. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
But I think, go ahead, Jeff, because I also want to hear about your notions of agency, because I think that has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you go back in time or travel around and talk to some of the early pioneers in 21st century transmedia, you'll hear a lot of stories about train wrecks where they let the audience take control of the narrative, and basically it never turned out good. And, there's a reason why you're an author of the story. You need to retain control of your core narrative, and as Rick pointed out, control how they interact with, give them choices. And there's a reason why they're engaged, and it's because your story is working. And if you let the crowd hijack your story, they don't necessarily know how to tell the story. So it's not going to work out.
Now, what about after you've got it all done and you're finished? How do you work out the distribution? And how do you work out selling the project? And how do you work out maybe getting an agent or not getting an agent and making money off it?
So you're me? So I'm gonna answer this?
You make money at it.
I do.
None of us make money at it, so
I think before we shift to that, because I really want to hear about his notions of agency.
I'm gonna do a thing. I'm sorry. I'm gonna do a thing. It's gonna become a transmedia panel in action.
Yeah.
You get to choose whether or not this is a fork in the road moment. I do what he wants, which is to describe how agency affects transmedia and vice versa, or I can respond to a bunch of stuff that a bunch of people said back and forth just a few seconds ago. Because I'm at that point right now. I have to make a decision. Do I respond to the axiomatic design argument? Do I point out that axiomatic design is actually inherently diagonal, and that's really bad for multi-platform storytelling? You need an orthogonal model. Do I go there, or do we talk about agency? Because at this point, I can do one or the other, or they'll kick me out if I try to do both. I promise.
So real quick,
Let's pick one.
talk about the geometry choice again. What was that one?
Axiomatic design is inherently diagonal. Okay, so all of your decisions, because as you pointed out, you are the smartest person in the audience right now. It is all based on through line and marketing. That's it. So you have, I've got a guy, he's a superhero, he's going to exist in this world, he's going to eventually blow up the moon, and I want to do that in a game and in a comic book. So what I do is I write the story about the guy who blows up the moon, and I really want to sell one of them, because really deep down inside I'm a filmmaker, so fuck comic books. But I want comic books because transmedia, that's the thing everybody's doing right now, so I'm going to jump on that and it'll help me market. That's what he said a bunch. It'll help me market my story about the guy who blows up the moon. So I will get some people in India or whatever to make a game, and I'll get a couple guys, I know some dudes who can draw, I'll make them draw a thing. But what I've done is I had a story about a guy who wants to blow up the moon, and that by default is not transmedia centric, it's not allowed, it's not friendly, because I'm going to tell you the same story whether I write it in a book, write it in a comic book, put it in a video game, and shuffle you down a set of tree points. It's diagonal. Start here, end there. Go that way. Additive as you go. Add to the story. If it goes through comic books or through music or whatever other media you want to shove it through, you're all stacking on your base narrative, growing your arc, and ending your arc, as he said, which is good. We're storytellers. That's plus. It's going to kill transmedia. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
But my point was particularity of axiomatic with integration. It's designing with that medium in mind. So mine was more of a design, not a narrative. I still want that matrix of possibilities.
Sure.
And I want to have that orthogonal. So I want my cake, eat it too, and I want to lose weight.
Right. Yeah. But you can actually, it depends on the frame of reference for design time. Now note, we took away their agency. We gave them.
I know, we gave them a choice. And we I guess that was just what we gave them the perception.
The perception of agency.
I think that's what Phoenix Run does really too. So we don't give them any agency, but we tell them they're going to have it.
the gag is with orthogonal design, everything exists on its own, it interconnects, right? And that's how we were talking earlier about the Star Wars thing. I did a Star Wars fanfic when I was like 19 or whatever. I made one, did lightsabers, hand painted the lightsaber, because it was back in the day, I'm old, so I had to actually like do it myself. I did that. Lucas had no idea, doesn't care, never talked to me, will never talk to me probably because he's busy building poor people houses, which is great for him. But it was orthogonal to the story. We had enacted, he and I together as a partnership, enacted Transmedia, but it wasn't authored Transmedia. He got no money from it. It wasn't marketing. We keep talking about George Lucas as though he's this like pillar of Transmedia, but he's not. He's a pillar of toy salesmanship. He's a pillar of marketing. He didn't make Transmedia. He made things to support a film. He's a filmmaker. His job is to make movies and then sell the movies. And he did so by selling a bunch of other crap that makes you think about and play with the movies. That's not Transmedia. That's something that's marketing disguised as Transmedia. If you want to look at Transmedia, you have to move your reference frame from all the different ways I basically make the movie I want to make and then wrap it in some other shit. Or move that reference frame from there back to, I have a universe that needs to exist. And some of it can only exist if agency is allowed. And some of it can only exist if I have total control of the narrative. And some of it can only exist if I can jump pages in my comic book. The comic medium is incredible because you can do so much logical leaping in there. It's wonderful. It's the only way it'll work. It won't cost me $1 trillion. I can make all kinds of cool stuff. Or in book form. Those are respectable media individually. And you move your reference frame back to, do I want to tell a story or do I want to have a franchise? If you want to have a franchise, get out of Transmedia. If you want to make it, if you have something that's burning inside of you to create and explore an actual universe that cannot be told on its own, if you can tell it on its own, you're going to go up that diagon again. You're going to say, I made a video game, and then I made Uwe Boll made a movie for my video game, so you'll buy the video game and the movie will suck. We can't, Transmedia doesn't work if any of them individually sucks, because we really wanted to make one of the things. That's where it's a failure. That's my response. So agency, really quickly, I'll give a quick brief about agency. I have this thing, the film forum that is apparently going to keep going, but I'll talk about agency and convergence. Transmedia has a major problem. It's the problem of convergence. What happens when my video game becomes my movie? And my movie, it can't. It can never happen. You can never have your video game become your movie.
It could be
ever.
the next episode or something.
You mean here?
Or well, no, you could have like a movie and then
the next bit is like a sequel if it's a video game. That's totally legit, completely legitimate, and I totally agree with that. But that's not convergence. That's still two orthogonal
That's
dialogues.
still sequencing.
Yeah. So here's the trick with convergence. It can't ever actually happen because of agency, and this is the really important part that we kind of have to collect when we imagine Transmedia, because agency will always be in the center of everything you're doing. The reason Phoenix Run the web series rocks and Phoenix Run the game could suck is because I could fuck up the game when I'm playing it. I've seen secretly a little bit of the series, and it's amazing, but I didn't have to do anything. I just sat there. When you go to the movies, I want to go see Avengers, Age of Ultron, I don't go there with the expectation of agency at all. I want to sit down, eat a popcorn, eat a pretzel, watch a thing bear out in front of me, and see what Joss Whedon did with his $8 billion. I want to see it. I want to not participate in it, right? If I buy a game, you damn well better be assured that thing shouldn't drag me through a track. I need agency. That's why I play a game. Sometimes you're done watching movies, you want to play a game because you want that agency, you want to do a thing. So, how can I ever converge those two when the one thing that separates them is the one thing that makes them different medium at all, or media at all? You can't. So what you need to do is, back to that original reference frame, respect them.
Yes.
They're separate things. They must reveal the portions of the universe that only they can reveal, otherwise don't do it. That's the point. That's where Transmedia, as I was trying to say when we got into the tangential thing, there is an opportunity here for an actual revolution. Not just wrapping everything in marketing and saying, well, we sold more Avengers comics after we made the Avengers movie. That's crap. Like, Marvel is doing something really interesting in Transmedia, which is it's not respecting the films at all. DC is not doing it. DC is rewriting all the comics to fit their new universe because they are doing the wrong version. They're marketing. They're making a big rolling beast.
Who killed Wolverine?
What do you mean?
Who killed Wolverine in our comic books?
I don't know. I'm not reading the comic. Is that a thing? Did it happen?
Yeah, they killed Wolverine, so they can't make any
You
more
can't make,
movies
but you
about
can
it.
make more movies about it. That's the thing.
Fox
It's
owns
silent.
the license for the movie.
That's a licensing. That's a totally other discussion. Film licensing.
What do you got?
You know, just a step from a transmedia perspective, when you think about campaigns leading up to the film, The Dark Knight, with
Yeah.
the Why So Serious campaign.
Mhm.
Do you guys know this campaign? okay, so I don't have to explain. I mean, really interesting. So you know, you go to a website, you get a clue. That clue sends you to a bakery. You get a piece of cake. You open up the cake. You get a riddle. You solve the riddle. You call the phone. You get a phone number. You go to the bowling alley. You get a strike.
It's
you
called an
score 10.
alternate reality
Yeah.
game, and you're actually doing this thing. I don't know if you're actually going to the bakery and buying a thing.
So you're doing all these
in real
things
life.
to ultimately and to win a prize, because there's a goal, and what the prize happened to be, you got to go to an advanced screening of The Dark Knight. Now the thing is, maybe 20 people in the known universe played this game, committed this much participation, but there might have been tens of thousands watching those 20, hundreds of thousands watching the 10,000 blog and tweet about, so you're creating this stacked sort of interaction and participation. Now again, this was for pure marketing. Get people to build buzz to the advance of The Dark Knight, which, you know, if you might want to argue was the best of the Batman series, mostly because of Heath Ledger, but that's another argument. But again, those type of campaigns were very expensive. They don't know if they have an ROI to see if this was worth the amount, and you don't see that many of them to that degree as you did then. But the idea of doing web-based scavenger hunts, getting people to participate is really fascinating.
Can I throw a brief counterpoint to that?
Yeah.
This is something those DigiPen dudes will remember very well. So that one was marketing, as you said. It was pure marketing. You knew what you were getting into. Microsoft, however, produced a campaign called I Love Bees. You guys remember the I Love Bees campaign? Yeah, nothing to do with Halo. It had to do with the universe of Halo. The AI in Halo was taking over a website, an apist website, and over time the website degraded, and the only way you can figure out what's going on is by like looking at the images and hex editors and find all this kind of crazy stuff. And it never said, check out Halo. It never happened. Okay, I lied. There was a Halo commercial that had ilovebees.com linked for like 2 frames one time, but it's fine. It took place entirely in the universe, and when you got to the end of it, it had nothing to do with Halo. It had only to do with an AI that existed in the world of Halo, which I posit as it's built in the same market as
sci-fi.
It's a video game.
Yeah.
It's a sci-fi video game. It's a first-person shooter sci-fi video game.
And now they have Ray Fair writing novels based on the video game.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that's the marketing problem. So it was completely orthogonal, right? They never really crossed, and they didn't have to. The universe was big enough for everybody, once they understood, oh my gosh, this is taking place in the world of Halo. Now I'm getting amps for what Halo 2 is about. There was a bit of a backlash to the ILB's campaign in that those people that won and they were phone calls and messages, and they had a meetup and all this other stuff. Some of them got really burned when they played Halo 2 and had nothing to do with it. They weren't related. They didn't have to be related. They were two things that took place in the universe. One of them effectively marketed the other without ever being actual marketing. It was an actual exercise in pure transmedia, which I thought was really incredible, especially since, on the face of it, I'm sure they sold off the chain to Microsoft as marketing.
So to your point, for me, that wasn't so much branded content, but branded context.
Correct. Yes.
Right?
Yes. Perfect.
Yeah.
So from a film, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think you bring up a good point when people played this I Love Bees game and they were pissed when they played Halo 2 and it didn't reward them, because it seems like you're gonna go down, just follow these paths and do other transmedia experiences. You should be rewarded for you should feel like it was worth your time when you watch the main storyline. On the flip side, you can't, like, for you when you're making a comic book and you have a web series, you can't have the comic book be so important that you're totally lost if you're just watching the web series and you don't know what's happening.
They're all standalone pieces. Everything has to be a standalone piece.
And it also has to
middle,
reward
end,
you too.
etc.
Like it has to be rewarding and enrich your experience.
I think that's an aesthetic.
Yeah.
Whether it's rewarding or not, it has to be compelling. Rewarding, I don't care. I mean, everybody gets participation when they watch. But from a filmmaker's perspective, I don't know if anybody's here for opening night. Anybody see Bristol Goodman? Cool. Bristol Goodman was a pretty cool film. I mean, it's an independent film. There's some parts you have to grit your teeth through, but the idea behind it is this guy got involved in a game via the internet, and it has kind of a feeling of like the game, like the movie The Game. Anybody see that?
Yeah.
So it's a game like that, and it's definitely immersive, and you have to interact with other people in order to make something happen or to get your outcomes. So you would have to interact with somebody that you didn't know in order to get your outcomes. But back to the agency thing, when it comes to filmmaking, we're making stories, complete stories, beginning, middle, and end. All of those are part of a linear timeline.
Yeah, the only agency required is that you sit there and watch it. Shut up, stop talking. That's it.
And the thing,
which is hard.
The practical,
I'm doing it right
it's
now.
very hard. The practical part of that is the same as developing a video game. The practical part is the same as writing a book. The practical part is the same as any other craft.
Yeah.
But the important part is, and not to get wrapped around the axle, is create compelling stories.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
So, however, whatever medium you're using, you can be very, very sparse about it. Create the world. And then people who watch one episode, they may not get all the tools they need, or they may say, I don't, what the hell did he mean by active? What does that mean? But it doesn't matter because it'll keep them curious. And so if they see just, they're not video gamers, but if they pull up the app on accident and they can't get out of it, and they see a two-stick game that they're trying to play, if they see something identifiable from that video game that they saw in the film, and then just saw it, then it automatically connects those two worlds together. So Transmedia, pulling back from all the creative part and the technical part of it, from a business perspective, as an independent filmmaker or an independent transmedia producer, I have to get people to watch it. I have to be able to distribute it and get it in front of faces. So regardless of the content, not regardless of content, but regardless of the agency involved, each particular item needs to be good. So my comic book episodes have to have female men, be compelling, have compelling characters, have to have diversity, darkness, we're gritty, we want it to be dark, and we want people to leave on the button, meaning they're going to come back again for the next one. So we're kind of like really, really basic. We did cookie cutters for all of our stuff in the small scale possible that we could afford in order to do all of those things. And when I say scalable, I mean that this is a little pot, and it's a little plant, and that's going to grow to a big fucking tree. And that tree, hopefully, is fan film, fan fiction, 5 years down the road. So
Back to the vine.
yeah, back to the vine.
So can I piggyback on that for a second? I think the idea that your core idea is the rocket fuel that's gonna push the revolution that you're talking about. This idea that you have to have. There are two opposing mindsets in transmedia. It's something I fight because I actually professionally make transmedia. That's what my company does. It's all it does. Every day of the week, all day. And since it's my own company, it's all night too, because I can stop. But the only way that it works is if you pick one of these two diametrically opposed ideas. I have a story to tell that I can only be told as a video game. Or I have a film, and I bet I could get it in front of other people if I had a video game too. That one's wrong. That one you're wasting. There are a bunch of people whose whole entire lives have led up to the moment they can make a video game, and you instead are going to use it as a pamphlet, a flyer, or whatever. Don't do that. If your movie's good, your movie's going to be great on its own. You're going to put it out there, you're going to tell a compelling story, like you said, people are going to watch and say, holy shit. And my mom is super into movies, doesn't give a shit about video games. And I'm sorry, my mom is part of the audience, just like everyone else's mom, everyone else's brother and sister, whatever. You can't, if you think of any medium that in its own right could be somebody's entire life and think, oh yeah, I could just tap that on. Don't do it, you're failed, that's your litmus test. Did you need to, is the only way you can tell this story via that medium. If not, tell it the way it should be told, because you're doing a disservice to the medium, and also to your story. If I have a story that I have, that I can only tell, if I can only make you watch it, you, Andrew, I can only watch it if you also get a game and a soda with a fucking picture on it and everything. I have zero confidence in my story. I'm trying to hack you into watching it. Then maybe I should pick a story that I know that Andrew will watch and will love, and the only thing I need to do is say, hey Andrew, here's the log line of my story, what do you think?
Love it.
At that point, if I can get you there, then I've done my job. All of the other stuff is wasted effort in my mind. If you can't get your log line down to a place where I can sit in an elevator and tell a guy, it's this, and this in one sentence, and that guy goes, I want to see it, you're taking all the effort that should have gone into that and making a whole video game, which is a giant endeavor in its own right if you want to make a good one. I know, because I'm making one right now with a team of 10 people. So that's kind of, I wanted to piggyback on your very good points and point that out. So he's making Phoenix Run. I'm currently in post-production on a feature film, just to show you that I'm not just some random dude yelling some stuff at you. I work with a video game company called Frictional Games. They made Amnesia, The Dark Descent. They also made the Penumbra series. We worked for 8 months writing back and forth 2 stories. A story that allowed agency and a story that did not. The story that allowed agency, their upcoming game, Soma, that game needed a backstory to work because a whole bunch of shit had to happen to get you to the place where you were alone with agency. How do you tell that? Well, you can tell it in a stupid cutscene or like a click-through, but there was enough story there to make a feature film. So we did the right thing. The film company made the movie in entire conjunction with the game company making the game. The two writers, I wrote the film and the game writer wrote the game, but I have a credit in the game and he has a credit in the film because we spent 8 months making sure that the movie was a movie that you could watch without ever caring about games. It would work and would lead you up to the end of the film. Leads it. It's basically the game is a sequel to the film, but the film exists and ends with and everything's exploded and it's the worst thing ever. That's not actually how it ends, but it effectively I can't give away the ending, but it ends at a nice point where you can be like, cool, sold. Then there's this game that you find out some terrible shit happened and you get hints of the terrible shit that happened. Your experience will be better if you've watched the film. You can have that participation. You can feel part of a larger universe, but you don't need to. It doesn't require. And it's the only thing you've said so far that I take slight difference with. I don't think a key to transmedia is participation, because at that point I need everybody to be a comic book fan if I'm making a comic book as well, and I don't want that.
And not suck.
And not suck if you're playing a game.
I want to try that because I totally agree. Compelling content, that's the heartbeat. That log line, that's your heartbeat, right? The word that I like that he just used was this word conjunction. Because if I'm thinking about designing for transmedia, again, know whose interests are being served and why you're doing it. The first model he talked about, bad, don't do it, karma. But the way he described how that story came out, that's a good flow. But there was conjunction, because as a designer, not only am I concerned with compelling content, but I'm concerned about my engagement strategy and my context. And I got to make sure that the people that I'm working with on the game side have as much respect for the compelling content that I have for the context and the engagement strategy. That one doesn't subsume the other, but that's where they need to be integrated and work together. And I think that's the real nuance and difference for me in what the future of transmedia, if we can work that algorithm well.
And that's the one that we all know hasn't worked well.
Yeah.
Uwe Boll made Blood Rain. Did it have anything to do with the video game? No! It had a name though, and some girl had dyed her hair a color that was not the same color from the game, but it was color. They didn't share anything. There was no reason for those two things to exist except one guy wanted to make a movie in Bulgaria with very little money and needed a way to market it, and that was how he did it. He used a video game that itself wasn't super popular.
And it's not forced, and that's where I Love Bees, I think, ultimately for me, I really like as a model and an example because it was an implicit sort of narrative compelling conjunction, but it was an explicit sort of engagement what they wanted people to do. They didn't have to hard sell Halo in the I Love Bees campaign.
I've slightly broken my NDA in showing my mother portions of the film that I'm making and showing my mother the game. My mother has zero interest in the game and is super, by the way, it's not just my mom likes the movies I make, she hates most of the movies I make. Not really, but she's the harshest critic, right? Because she says, well, you could have done this. But she loves the movie as a story. She wants to know what's happening in the story, and when she plays the game, there's no connection. She doesn't need it. They both exist independently and successfully on their own. When they can converge in experience, that's great. We've done it. We have a universe that must exist. I think you said something that I don't think you meant in the way that I'm about to rail on it, but you said when planning a transmedia campaign, I hold you should never plan a transmedia campaign because at that point you've already started at the place we said don't start, which is I want to do a thing, so let's make up a bunch of shit and I'm going to try to slot into the thing that I want to do. No. Have the story. I've seen a bit of Phoenix Run, and that all I had were questions. All I had were examples. There were things in the bit I saw that I was like, I wish I would have done something totally different in that scenario. I want to play in that universe. It's a universe that has a place that I can go in and play. I can't play with those dudes that I saw, but I can, in a similar situation, I can do a thing. And it feels like it's rife for that. There are some universes that aren't. I would never want God, this is the worst. I will not say that. That was really, I was going to say something really dark. I'm going to say it anyway. That movie with Willem Dafoe, Antichrist. Don't want to play a game in that universe. I never want to go there. So it exists and works on its own. It's totally fine. At no point do I need to turn into, no, it's cool. But there are some that are very compelling and can support that. I think that you should never, though, you should lead with, I've got a universe inside of me, I've had it since I was 9. Maybe I'm using survivorship bias, because this is just me I'm talking about. So, of course, do what I do. But I wanted to tell these stories, and some of them can't be contained to a 77-minute, $300,000 production. Like that. Some of them can't exist in that. It won't happen. Some of them must play. Must be played. I was actually very offended. I showed my mom the story. My mom again. I was like, this is a great. She goes, you know, that sounds actually like a video game. And I'm like, no! I'm a filmmaker! That is not a game! Games are games! This is. I was like 20. I was really like amped up about this idea. But my mother, prophetic as she was basically telling me this requires. I want to go in that world and play in there, and you can't contain all that you wrote a stack of shit. You can't just put that in 77 minutes. You need to explore it, right? So that was the thing that requires a game to exist. I probably won't make the movie. It doesn't need to exist. That was a game. But there are some things, like this endeavor I'm going through with Frictional, where the game will be much better with a film. And the film will have much more context if you play the game. They both exist on their own and had to. That was our rule one. Every night when we finish writing, God, they're in Sweden, so it's like I work all day and then I work fucking 8 hours at night because of the time and the Earth is a sphere and the sun and all that crap. It's 9 hours ahead of us. So I worked a day, an additional day with them. At the end of it, every day, it had to be, do we do something that can exist entirely on its own? If not, light it on fire. And God, we lit it on fire 52 times. 52 times. 52 major script revisions. It was, I wanted to die. But, there you go. Yes, sir.
5 minutes.
5 minutes?
5 minutes. So,
Would you
anybody have
be
any burning
willing to
questions?
back up?
Ask questions,
Well, we
please.
never really answered her question.
Oh, it's
Which-
okay, I don't care.
She doesn't even remember her question.
Show her.
She's
What-
wondering how
what
you
was your question,
monetize
Jen?
it.
And the thing is, there's nothing wrong with doing a film,
Right.
and there's nothing wrong with doing a video game or a comic
No.
separately.
Yeah, no, no. I don't think
I
we're trying to show you know,
I think she
this
brought
would
up,
be.
she brought up the question about, I think, monetization.
Okay, so
And-
here we go.
And what real quickly though, also, you know, a lot of times, you know, I got involved in working with the Sci-Fi Network.
Yeah.
And I found out that a
I'm sorry.
lot of these shows that you see on Sci-Fi Network are basically just window dressing to ramp up to a television
Yeah.
commercial.
Yeah.
And the Bibles are, okay, 8-act structure, and it has to end, the scene has to end with a question because you want people to stay for the ads.
Yeah.
And that's, and a lot of things that we're constructing is around advertising. And that's how generally things get monetized.
Let
So-
me give you
so-
just a quick
so-
monetized answer.
Okay.
A model you can look up. Look what Brett Friedman did with Valmont and his relationship with Verizon. I'm not saying I would go there, but it was a very effective monetization model to create a transmedia that was picked up by MTV, the web, an entire universe, virtual university created. So just look at Brett Friedman, Valmont.
But you see a lot of, like the big business, whatever, they'll see a filmmaker doing something effective with transmedia, and they'll suck them in and like, okay, sell our, you know, cupcakes, or sell our granola bars.
That's something I'd
and
love to
create
comment
that.
on, Jason, because as artists, we have to make money. So, not a contention, but maybe a counterpoint to what Don was saying. We have to somehow market our stuff. So I am not blind to that, and I'm not a hipster either. So I'm all about killing my babies. I'll give you an example of how TV stations do it with their shows. So American Horror Story, for example, changes each year. Same cast, different characters. And what they do is they look at the feedback they get from their community. They got a community because they built an audience for it. They built an audience through, you know, a very, very well established infrastructure. But if people are talking about it on social media, if they're talking about it on websites and commenting on videos, for example, that is agency. Because then writers will take that and say, well, this didn't work, where, you know, we established a superpower and she did this thing, you know, that totally didn't work, let's not do this again. Or they don't like sex scenes in this slice, and that's our biggest slice, so we're going to cut out all sex scenes. That's agency. So that's one way they do it. What we do as, are you confused about that?
Yes.
Why is that?
Why is it agency?
If your writers are writing at the push of an audience, the audience collectively is making choices in the show, not knowing it.
Right.
Yeah, they're agencies. So my point
Their
is,
agency's driving the writers.
our
So
goal.
the audience is driving at that point.
Correct.
Our-
Can I, before you continue, I just want to throw one thing in. I want to recontextualize everything I've said to kind of piggyback on him because what he says makes sense, and he kind of drew a line that I actually don't. The minute they want me to direct Ant-Man 5, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So here's the trick. When I said compelling stories, I didn't mean Anna Karenina. I didn't. I meant stories that people will buy.
Yeah, and
Stories that people will like
stories
and
that
buy,
will
pay
keep
money
their
to make.
attention.
Yeah.
And if we go to a commercial break, wants to come back and watch the next scenes. When I write, every scene I write does that, period. So that's one of my criterion as a writer. So whether it's your commercial following the scene where the mom tells her son that he's adopted, it's there.
I mean, it gets to a point though that the Bible is so ridiculous that they want you to make if you're making a horror movie, 80% of the horror movie needs to be shown during the day.
Yeah.
Because they don't want, because the Sci-Fi Network doesn't want people to be depressed and seeing something dark.
That's a production standard that I would be glad to jump on.
Are they making money with that standard? Because if they are, then
Yeah, I think it is.
I mean,
that's formulaic.
it's universal.
But
I mean, when they say making
here's
money,
what
not
we
making
provide.
money.
Okay, we're talking about monetization. Here's what we provide for our sponsors. Customer delight. So we're basically that glass of wine you feed your date before you want to sit down and cut and watch a movie. We are lubricating an audience to receive a message. So from a businessman standpoint, just think of it that way. I have a gritty, dark web series that will not tie in with Coca-Cola. It will not tie in with Tampax. It will not tie in with Hasbro, anything. But when people watch it, they see good performances, they see stellar technical execution, and they hear a story that gets them on board, and they want to know what happens next. And that is hopefully what people with money will want, because they know that button that comes at the end of the scene will lead them into a commercial.
Yeah, right. As you think about this, your value proposition is only not the design of your aesthetic, but the potential monetization. So one thing I want to ask for, so up in that corner, the Ketz on Amalis Interactive, I was asked to make a 60-minute documentary of behind-the-scenes making of a Grammy Award-winning band, and I decided not to do a 60-minute documentary. I decided to do a snowfall-like, song-by-song, interactive, immersive scroll. I'm not sure if it works. I think there's some things about it that do, and it was a choice that we had worked out with the band because it felt like that was the compelling story with the context that made sense to me, rather than because Ketz on Malice is an album about urban animals, and it's a concept album like Sgt. Pepper's. So what if the people who did Sgt. Pepper's in the late '60s could do Sgt. Pepper's in this era? That's what I tried to do.
Yeah. So here's really the challenge. So the first question you have to answer for yourself is, do you want to build a skill set so you can do work for hire for sci-fi, or do you want to be an independent producer? So you got to make that decision first.
Well, no, but a lot of people say that the content in Sci-Fi Network sucks. And a lot of these very creative people are hamstrung by choices that reflect the advertising.
Can I argue indirectly? Do you make art for a living?
Yeah.
Do you do it every day? Do you have any other source of income that's
Yes,
not art?
I have another source of
Okay,
income.
so check it out. As an artist, getting a paycheck will never hamstring me, ever, not once. It can't happen. Because being able to not go to an office and type all day, that hamstrings me. Doing that. Not doing that is what frees me. So going to sci-fi, if sci-fi called me up and said, do you want to go do a cheesy fucking animals turn into insects, whatever thing, yeah, I'll do that. And I'll get paid every day, and every single day I'll learn more and more and more until I can say, you know what, I'm done with insect animals. I'm gonna go get a job doing something else because I've proven that I can run an entire crew of 200 over the course of 6 months. That's a provable thing. At one point, Ridley Scott makes a movie where Russell Crowe goes home and cries all the whole movie. He had to make Gladiator first, but he wanted to make that Russell Crowe crying movie for his entire life, and he did. He spent 30 years trying to make Tristan and Isolde. Nobody wanted it because it's a dumb movie.
I mean, here's the thing. I mean, again, I understand there is some creative involvement with when you make these things. My thing is that I feel that a lot of times people that are creative get put in a box, and they end up constructing things that executives
That's
tell
an
them.
ironic statement, what you're saying to me, because my creativity is what breaks walls, you know what I mean? So I work in control measures. I was in the military for 14 years, so I'm used to that. It's a system. But what you do is you figure out what that system is, and then you let your creativity work around it, you know what I mean? But now I'm talking about, we started talking this conversation about monetizing. When I get money, don't doubt I'm doing experimental shit that nobody will want to watch, because it's going to be my brainchild. But when it comes to making money, it starts somewhere. The idea starts somewhere, and somewhere has to get to somewhere else. In order to do that, you need money, because money makes it happen. So.
Speaking directly to that point, 1977 Star Wars was awesome. We loved that movie. It was great, right? The Phantom Menace sucked. Why? Because one guy was hamstrung by a studio and producers that didn't trust his idea and all this other stuff. He was forced to be creative on the day. Then a billionaire made a movie with it. Anything he wanted to do, wasn't forced to be creative. You put me 6 months on a sci-fi show, I'll be creative every single day because the script I got is shit. The actors I've got are subpar, or what? Maybe they're great. I don't know. But it's not my story. I have to be creative on a day-to-day basis to get that art out, to make something amazing with this. So you give me $100 million today. I was recently offered a meeting to go get a budget for a film. I turned it down because I can't deal with the amount of money that they offered. It wasn't just to me for my production. We couldn't do it. I would ruin it. I would burn the place down. I have no idea what I would do. I told them, I'll do 2 movies in between this and that. They will get me to that point. And they're like, not with us, you won't. And I was like, oh great, I lost that opportunity. But you have to be creative. Being creative, what you said was perfect. If you're a creative person, you're hamstrung by your script, you're not a creative person. You're somebody who wants to be a creative person. Maybe time, effort, energy, talent, maybe whatever gets you to be a creative person will eventually happen. But the minute you got the script and were like, I can't do anything like that, you just wrote a little note to yourself. By the way, not really creative today. Like that's what you did. If you're given the opportunity to fail and you succeed, the only way to do it is ingenuity and creativity.
And if you can be creative in the box,
oh yeah,
hopefully you can transform that if you're ever in the opportunity to be creative outside of the box. I'm interested to see, and we've seen it with the guy in the District 9, and what has he done since then?
Yeah.
Not quite.
He got a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Exactly, he got a bunch of money. M. Night Shyamalan got a bunch of money. George Lucas got a bunch of money.
Look at all his websites, though.
Yeah.
Bloomcom's websites are amazing. It's a Transmedia
Oh, yeah.
fucking goldmine.
Oh, I know.
If you guys know who the director is, Bloomcom, look at his websites. Look at the website for
Neil Blomkamp.
Neil Blomkamp for District 9. Look at that website. I haven't seen any.
Alive in Joburg, District 9.
Did you know who backed him for District 9?
Lucas.
What?
Peter Jackson.
Peter Jackson.
They're gonna make a Halo movie.
So, brief review. What's
Well,
up?
sorry.
Not at all.
I had like a general
stuff.
The more I think about it, the more it seems like Transmedia seems the most necessary to make in like a sci-fi or a fantasy. You were talking about horror, which I would argue can fit into the fantasy box. Like, is horror doesn't fit into?
No. I totally
It's not
disagree.
Yeah, no, it applies to everything.
I want to drop the like, don't worry child, in 10 years you'll recognize there are no genres. I'm going to drop it. Is Alien a science fiction movie? Alien.
Yeah.
Yeah, is it a horror movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, is it a drama movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what genre is it?
Go look up Hollow, Hollow, Hollow the Interactive Doc, about a depressed region in West Virginia, and watch what she does beautifully.
It doesn't have to be genre either.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Twitch TV?
No.
Okay, Twitch TV is a gamer's website that operates on a website, and it uses a Skype feed. And what it does is they do game reviews, they do live play and everything, and then they'll have people who are watching get in and talk to each other about what's happening on the screen. So
You can see progress of my game Star Mazer on Twitch TV / Star Mazer.
So
or
Twitch
StarMazer.tv.
is a transmedia like kind of a monolith. It's grown out of nothing, and it has millions of subscribers and people watch it. It tapped into a pre-existing audience, it had to build an audience. It did all kinds of brilliant things, and the production value on it is crap. It's
Oh, yeah.
crap.
Yeah.
Right,
They're
so
totally
that's
Except for ours,
the
we
key
actually
point
invested
right
in
there. So when you talk about monetization, this is still the entertainment business. The entertainment business is about delivering an audience. First thing you gotta get the audience, then you have to figure out how to make money on them. Which is either you sell them shit, you show them ads. I mean, it always has, always ever will be. This now we have all these digital tools and ways as an independent where you can make money through multiple channels. You can have a game and a comic book and a web series, and any one of those by itself might not make enough money to make it work, but when you put all the revenue streams together, they make money. And when your audience gets big enough, then the sci-fi channels and the people like that come to you and they want to license or acquire the material, or book companies come and want to do a book deal with you, and that's how you make money.
How are we doing on time, Will?
I think he gave us 5 minutes and a half hour. this is Transmedia, we created our own universe, we extended time.
Let's practice agency. Who's got a question?
Is there a question back there? Do you have a question?
Oh, were you just offended?
Did you bother you?
Okay, well, pros. You guys, so real quick, we start with a comic book and comic book written in Celtics. Celtics, it gives you the opportunity to take your comic book and translate it to a screenplay, to a stage play, whatever. And so it was an accident that we figured out we could make a film out of our comic book. When we found that out, we decided to make an episode of this first comic, the very first one that got, of 20 that was published. So that's how we started. Before we knew what Transmedia was. But the comic book the idea was to market it to a distribution company, sell it, and, make money on it. Never happened. Hasn't happened yet. But what we found out is since then we've fell in love with the film side of it, the web series part of it, and what else we realized is that the video game part of it was tied in because of it. So we started from an independent artist standpoint. So one business model. Now what we have is 4 verticals, if you want to call them that, revenue streams. That they have other geometric terms for it. But that's how it evolved into what it is. But it all starts from a place of being independent content creator. Period. So transmedia is kind of a buzzword. So it's not you don't have to get too tripped out about it. But what is great about it is I don't have to make short film because I don't have any features. I can make short film, tell a story in a graphic novel, and do this, and then continually growing this story. And that to me is really, really fun as an artist. It's awesome. It's a good experience. You work with a large set of people. You're a transmedia producer gives you the opportunity to basically be chairman of the fucking board. You got guys